Hello everybody, welcome back to Giga. We are now live and I'm being stared at as though I've stepped out of a piece of cheese by a Land Rover full of fascinated guests who are sharing Karula with us here, because I'm now talking what seems to be to myself. We've just had a buffalo walk past, which was quite exciting, but Karula did nothing but lift her head and then ignore us studiously, as she has done the whole day. I have now flattened a fair proportion of the strychnos population of this area. That is not a bad thing. Strychnos is an encroacher species, so I've actually done the ecology of the area something of a favour. Viam's torn most of his clothes because of it. You know, that's what cameramen have to live with. Karula hasn't done much since we last saw you. She has moved slightly. She looked like she was going to go up the tree and then she didn't. I have attempted to take a few more pathetic photographs with my camera, but failed miserably because, like I said, I don't have a Canon like Brent Leo Smith does on the end of his camera. Or Scott, for that matter. He's also got a good camera. They both take magnificent photographs. But what I've been struck with the whole afternoon, as people have come and gone, we've now had 3 or 4 vehicles come in and go, and we've been privileged enough to just sit here with her, is the incredible colour. Look at her tail there, coloured against the grey-brown grass of this really lovely sort of atmospheric winter's day. As I said before, and you can see the light is very flat, but there's a gunmetal grey sky and an atmosphere of sort of a close-in atmosphere of slight tension, but real kind of beautiful winter energy all over. Hello Sammy, age 12 at the Dayton Children's Hospital. Sammy, you're worried, or you want to know if she's worried that the hyenas might come back. Well, a hoof walking through the grass just now, she shot up and looked quickly. So Sammy, she'd hear the hyena walking through the bush. They'd never be able to sneak up on her, and that's why she lies close to the tree, so she can be relatively close to safety, but she'll lie down on the ground because it's just much more comfortable than lying in a spiky tree. Hello, Carrie 15 in the gorgeous country of Costa Rica. I've seen photographs of your country and I hope to visit it one day. I haven't been there yet. You want to know why Karula is known as the Queen of Djuma. I'm going to bat this question into the Twitter sphere to the likes of Ellen Fowler, who is obviously something of an expert, and the followers of Wild Earth that have been with us for quite a long time. I think that she's called the Queen of Djuma because she's has been the most commonly seen leopard, A, and B, because she's just such a tremendously successful animal, and this is her territory centers on the wonder of Djuma. So I think that's why she's known as the Queen of Djuma. But Ellen and the other wonderful leopard-knowing people on the Twitter sphere, you can perhaps give Carrie a more accurate answer than me. Look at that gorgeous picture. So, there are a few of you who have mentioned to me, because this is my first meeting with the royalty that is Karula, that she has her most obvious feature on her face, or her most obvious identifying mark, is a W in between her eyes. And yes, I did notice that. Thank you. It is quite a prominent one. And she seems to have a 3-4 spot pattern, which is the spots above the whiskers, and that I quite like to use when I'm identifying leopards. But she has got a distinct face, doesn't she? She's got that W. She's got quite a I got into trouble for saying a pug face earlier, but she's got a slightly, and I mean this in the kindest possible way, she's got a slightly sort of squashed-ish face for a leopard. Not that that takes away from her beauty at all. So please don't worry that I'm insulting her at all. But she's got a slightly more, less elongated face, shall we say, than some of the other leopards, like Shadow, for example. And she's quite pale. She's quite nice. She's got a lovely kind of subtle colour to her. And you can see her breathing is starting to slow. So I suspect that the digestive process is happening quite nicely. There's a very, very nice question here from Brian in Toronto. Brian, you want to know if animals are colorblind, in khaki and various other kind of brownish colors. And the truth of the matter is, Brian, that the least obvious color to be out here, I don't believe, is khaki. A lot of the khaki that you can see, for example, can you just, oh no, you can't do that. So if you look at my shirt, when I take my jersey off, I'll show you my shirt when this other vehicle has moved out of here. It's pretty obvious walking through this bush. So a better color to be is gray. And so when I buy sort of coveralls and that sort of thing to walk around in the bush with, gray is the color I choose. So one of the reasons is for fashion. Basically, people a bright color doesn't, while they can't see red, a bright color will reflect the sun and therefore attract more attention. I hope that answers your question for you, but I think grey is a much better colour than khaki to be. I don't know, VM, maybe if you can just pull back a little bit. We'll just wait for this vehicle to go, Brian, and I'll show you the two colours that I'm wearing, and I'll show you which I think is much better. She's listening all the time. So we had that lovely question from Costa Rica. She's very aware all the time. Not from Costa Rica, sorry, from Dayton in Ohio. She doesn't sleep soundly at all, like us. Now you can hear the level of effort that people are going to view this magnificent animal. Kathy in Tennessee. Kathy in Tennessee, you want to know if the black spots on the belly are known as spots or rosettes. Well, Kathy, rosette is a collection of spots that surrounds a golden color, and a spot is a spot basically. So if you look at her belly, you can see very clearly which ones are spots and which ones are rosettes. And you can see the reason they've got that spotting, the sort of less detailed spots on their bellies and their tails, is because those are the ones that the light doesn't shine on. So the light will shine, the dappled light of the thick bush where they live will shine onto the back. And that's a great camouflage in the thick bush. No, they don't form coalitions like cheetah or lions, but what they do is they'll form sort of temporary bonds with each other until they get to the stage where they're territorial and they start marking territory. And then those two males will cease to be friends. They may meet up much later on when they've and show slightly less aggression to each other than two unrelated territorial males, but they aren't forming a coalition, no. They're still, remember, they're not quite independent yet. And so they'll hang around together, and basically just like they drifted off from their mother, bit by bit, so they will drift away from each other slowly. Nice question, though. They're the only true social cats in the world are lions, and the cheetah also are slightly social, the males especially. Lovely question. Thank you, Julia. Hello, Bugsy, and Dennis from Spain. I'm going to do your two questions together. You want to know about the meat in the tree. The meat in the tree used to be a bushbuck. It is now just the top end of a bushbuck. The rest of it is in alternately two hyenas' bellies and the belly of this magnificent leopard on the ground. Now, first of all, Bugsy, so it was a bushbuck. I think she killed it probably early last evening or yesterday afternoon, and she hoisted into the tree probably sometime during the night when the hyenas came around. She was seen drinking not far from here yesterday evening, and I think she came back in this direction to carry on feeding. And then, Dennis, you want to know, would a vulture be able to take it from her? Interestingly, as we pulled out today after you came back to us after those technical issues, a few white-backed vultures came flying over here, circled around, and they didn't land around the tree. It's highly unlikely that they would try and take something from her. Vultures will descend in huge numbers to kills, but they will very unlikely be able to take something from a predator like this. That said, vultures are known to take the prey from cheetah, for example. Big numbers of vultures will steal from cheetah, but a leopard like this, a vulture will struggle to steal from. She'll leap up that tree very fast, and the vultures will fly off. So vultures will see this, though. They definitely were chasing it today. The air was pretty cold, so they didn't sort of come from a great distance. They obviously spotted it from close by, and they circled around, saw her, she was still with the kill, and then landed in and around the place. Now, just next to her, I've spoken a little bit about the incredibly poisonous plants that can occur. There's trees that I've been basically bashing for most of the afternoon are an encroacher species called Strychnos madagascarensis, or the black monkey orange. And the black monkey orange has got a seed in it that contains the poison strychnine, which will cause all sorts of neurological damage to you, resulting in kind of shaking about and eventually asphyxia, which I'm sure, as you'll all agree, is not a good way to go. The tree that Viam is looking at now is in fact a zebrawood, Dalbergia melanoxylon, and its most famous use is in clarinet making, actually. That would make a particularly poor clarinet, the tree he's looking at now, because it's been mashed by elephants. And I believe you were talking to Scott quite a lot about the damage that elephants do. Now, there are lots of trees out here that we could make furniture from, or musical instruments, or various other things. But because of the elephants, they maintain them at a very low height, and so we don't get to sort of see them in their full glory, I suppose. And a Dalbergia tree like that zebrawood, is called a zebrawood because it's got a very black heartwood and a lovely white sort of outer wood. And that black heartwood makes wonderful musical instruments, both traditional sort of European, if you like, based clarinets and other kinds of traditional instruments. And that, you don't want to drive over one of those. We flattened a couple of Strychnos trees, but we studiously avoid the Dalbergias because they have got vicious spines on them that'll go straight through the tires of this Land Rover. So I'm not sure if she is going to go back up into the tree, but I really think it's well worth sitting with her for a while longer and just seeing if she doesn't. Hello, Marge. Marge, I believe you were raised on a dairy, and on your dairy you weren't allowed to walk around the bulls in a red shirt. And this is apropos of the conversation that we had about the color of rangers' clothing and why we tend to wear khaki. Marge, I don't think you also wondered if our buffalo would react to a red shirt in the same way that perhaps a charging bull at a matador would in Spain. Marge, I don't think so, no. I'm not sure. Animals are, when we say they're colorblind, they see a range of color. So the predators that see the best at night will see pretty much in two tones, not black and white apparently, but sort of two tones of color, whereas the more diurnal ones will tend to see in color. So a buffalo, which is not strictly nocturnal, will be able to see some elements of color, and I imagine a cow, which is a bovid, is able to do the same sort of thing. I have some experience with guests who have worn bright yellow out here, and while they don't, the animals don't tend to react to it. I wonder if the red color of the matador is not kind of incidental, rather than, if it was yellow, I wonder if the bulls would charge to this just the same. And so, I mean, with the yellow jacket, I've seen rhino react, but I think. Hello, Barbara in Greenwich. Another also, but they'll take much less time to habituate. Leopards will take years to habituate if they have not been around vehicles at all, but once they're used to them and they realize that we aren't a threat, then they'll sit just like this wonderful leopard is. She's totally confiding and totally trusting of us and anything that we want to do, which is just, it's such an incredible privilege. And you must never make the mistake that these animals are tame. They're not tame or domesticated at all. They're simply habituated to the presence of vehicles. If I was to get out of the car, she'd react by probably running away. She'd probably snarl at me and then slink off into the bush, but she's not tame or domesticated at all. Thanks, Marge. So we quite mercifully have this sighting all to ourselves again, and it's just, I can't tell you how amazing it is to be able to spend this amount of time with a special wildcat like this. 5 or 6 vehicles have come and gone, and here we are sitting with her, sharing it with you. Pamela, you're not going to like the answer to this question. You want to know what would happen if a leopard and a house cat met up. Pamela, that has happened in areas like this, and I'm afraid what happens is that the house cat ends up much the same way that the bushbuck is currently. They will happily eat domestic animals. Leopards are known for eating domestic animals, and in fact, rather sadly, one of the guys around here had a dog on the reserve, and he came out of his office one day, and I think it was Nkuhuma or quarantine, grabbed his dog and disappeared into the night with it. It was a small dog. That's why I would never keep a dog in an area like this, because I'd be much too sad if that was to happen. But it's a totally natural thing for leopards to do. So they do it in the wild, and they will sometimes eat jackal. It's quite common for them to do. It's definitely common for them to kill wild dog pups. And so, yeah, if she was to meet a house cat, I'm afraid the house cat would come off a very poor second, especially given a house cat is not trained to avoid things like an African wildcat might be out here. And so the other end of the scale, of course, is a lion and a leopard meeting up, and the leopard would be as terrified of the lion as your house cat would be of the leopard. And speaking of lions, somebody rather close to us all has managed to refine the Nkuhuma pride, so we're going to go across to the inimitable and stoic Scott Dyson, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone, and thankfully Karula is in no danger of being chased anywhere by these lions, and I believe James has been letting you all know the likely reactions of a leopard if they are confronted with a pride of lion. I've managed to share that with you once since we've been here with Safari Live, and it was when the 2 Styx lioness were kind of jumped onto the scene when Mvula was mating with a female leopard called Kwatile, and it was a really interesting sighting because Karula, the same leopard you've just been looking at, whose territory Kwatile, another female, had come into in order to mate with Mvula, Karula was following about 100 meters behind the mating pair, and they got down to Twin Dams where they both sat down and drank, and another vehicle that was arriving into the sighting, I think it was Andrew, he was coming from the south, approaching from the dam wall side, and on his way in he noticed the 2 lioness, and alerted us to them. And as we shone the spotlights onto the dam wall, all we could see was half the face of one of the Styx lioness peering down at the leopard. The leopard thankfully got wind of the lion, and before the lion could get onto them, the leopards had scrambled up a big jackalberry tree nearby. And once they do climb up a tree, they're basically safe from lion because they're not good climbers. But we've only been able to capture that, I think, once in the 7 months that we've been here. And it's always very nerve-wracking when you see a leopard in the close proximity of lion, because the last thing you want is to see them get a hold of one, for obvious reasons. Now, as you can all see, the lions have gone back to bed. And really interesting behavior, because they seem to be kind of in full swing when we left them. Thankfully, our friend Aubrey managed to find them again, and just as I was discussing a little bit earlier, his knowledge of both the property and the animals that roam this property are so valuable for all of us, because if it wasn't for him, Brian and myself would probably still be scratching our heads, wondering where they are. Texan's on his way in to join us, and another update about this general area is that on our way here, we did see some buffalo bulls a couple of 100 meters away. So there's a chance that if these lions continue in an easterly direction, they could come across these buffalo a little bit later. So that's something to bear in mind. Well, good afternoon, Leslie in California, and welcome on board with us. Leslie was lucky enough to be here on Arethusa earlier on in the year, and she said when she did a bushwalk, she noticed a huge amounts of insects and ants on the ground. There's not as many around at the moment, Leslie, because we're in the middle of the winter, so typically the summer months, the warmer months, there's a lot more insects. Having said that, though, there are still a lot of flies around, as well as ticks, which will cause a problem and be a nuisance to the lion. And Leslie is interested to know, are there any natural defense mechanisms for the lion against these parasites? Not that I'm aware of. All they can do is flick their tail and twitch their ears and try and keep as clean as possible by grooming to keep the flies away. And regarding the ticks, again, it's just a matter of constant grooming, allo-grooming one another to help get the ticks off their bodies. But sadly, they simply just have to deal with it. And there could be something that I'm not sure of, but as far as I'm aware, they don't have any natural defense mechanisms against the insects. I guess they are born into an insect-filled environment, and they just get used to it over the years. It can be often quite amusing to watch lion or any animals that are being bothered by tiny little pests, because you can get them jumping around and trying to even catch the flies. This afternoon, though, it seems like the lion have got it easy. There don't seem to be many flies on them, and it tends to change from day to day. So, for those of you who may have not watched the last two sunset safaris, we have viewed them on both occasions, both yesterday afternoon and the day before that, and it was 2 days ago that we left them, and we found them the following morning extremely full-bellied, and we're not sure what it is they killed, possibly a wildebeest or possibly a few smaller prey items. There's a very small chance they could have killed a buffalo bull, but the reason why I think that's unlikely is that for them to finish off an entire buffalo bull in just one sitting in one evening would be unlikely. either way, they were extremely bloated and full-bellied yesterday afternoon, still digesting whatever it is they caught. And today they appear to be still full-bellied, but a lot more comfortable. You really have to take a close look at their bellies. And I guess the one in the center of the shot now is a good opportunity. You can see it's kind of flat and parallel with her legs and her hips, her shoulders and her hips, indicating that there is still some meat in there. And in another 18 hours or so, it'll probably have halved. It's about 3 days for them to digest a full belly, but they will still be perfectly capable of surviving a few more days before they need to make a kill after that 3-day period.
Yeah, where are you now, Jan?
Well, I must say a huge thank you to Kathleen for providing us with some really great information on Asiatic lions, and we were asked about the Asiatic lions a little bit earlier, and I was completely wrong about my assumption. They're actually slightly larger than African lions in general, so that's an interesting fact in itself. The sad fact, though, that Kathleen has let us know about is that, and it's something that I also asked for, so thank you, Kathleen, is that there's only about 350 Asiatic lion living in the wild at the moment. So it's really sad news, but hopefully that population is stable. And the good thing about conservation these days is that we can still grow back populations of animals, as small as they may be, provided we make a concerted effort and there's a habitat available to them that can be maintained. It's usually all they need is space and a natural environment to occur naturally and be able to expand on those numbers. So let's hope for the Asiatic lion that their numbers increase.
Yeah. Wow, quite no doubt. You would think.
Well, we can tell there's not many pests around because not even their ears are twitching. Usually that will be their most common form of fly removal, although having said that, I can see a lot of flies now that Brian's zoomed in on the lion's fur. They are probably too small to be causing any concern to her now, and I guess her fur is acting as a natural barrier to those small flies. But there we go, they still have a problem this afternoon, and I guess those flies are probably constant residents on the back of these lion and follow them wherever they go.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, also, yeah. Lots of branches.
Well, speaking of fur and how the lion's fur is keeping them somewhat protected from these flies, James has somehow found another piece of fur that he would like to show you. So over to him and we'll see you a bit later.
Hello, back to Jiga everyone. Look at that classic leopard shot. Beautiful. She's just up and looking around to see, I don't know if that hyena isn't maybe coming in again. She's up and she's fairly awake, and I'm hoping that she's going to go up the tree fairly soon. Just while we wait there, I have two special things to show you. They're not particularly delightful to look at, but Viam, let us do the first prop first. These are two bits of bushbuck. The one on the right, you can see I picked up with a tissue for a very good reason. Now, the one on the left is part of the hair, probably from the belly, that came off when she would have licked it off. And then before I know this is a little bit disgusting, but before disemboweling the bushbuck and then carrying it up the tree. And you can see it's kind of congealed. that's basically from her saliva, I think. She would have licked that clean off. They've got very powerful sandpapery tongues, so you think of your house cat, and they've got an amazing amount of sandpaper on their tongue. Well, a leopard is that much bigger and that much stronger, and so you can imagine the effect of that sandpapery tongue on the hair, soft underbelly of the bushbuck. Then, if you come a little bit over to the right, that leaf is a by mistake prop. She's just getting up for him. So you're just going to go across to the leopard. Go on, go for it, girl. Up you go. There's definitely some movement in the bush there. It's a hyena. Fium spotted a hyena. Here she comes. Okay, watch out, Vium. Here she goes. Here she goes. That's me. Isn't that just spectacular? Ah, that's great. I've been waiting for that all day. Thank you, hyena, for prompting that. The hyena's just going past the left, and the hyena is basically approaching towards the smell of the other prop that I've got on the dashboard here is, of course, the stomach contents of the bushbuck. It's just half chewed up leaves, and it smells quite strong, and that's exactly what this hyena is heading towards. And she's watching it quite carefully. Look at that classic leopard shot. Oh, that's beautiful. The hyena's now basically into the pile of stomach contents, exactly as that's basically how they find this prey. And so if a leopard is not going to hoist the kill, often what she does is she will bury the stomach contents. So she'll take it out and then bury it. You're going to move again, Viam. Here she goes. This is the one time that gunmetal sky is a bit of a disadvantage because we don't get the golden 5 o'clock rays on her. Oh, look at that. So elegant. Beautiful. So she'll probably just go up one more branch and have an, oh. Liam, people pay good money to see this sort of thing. Isn't that just spectacular? Oh my goodness. Oh, well. I'm done. I can say no more. So we got some information from MJ, and MJ, thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us. MJ, you say that Karula basically inherited her name, the Queen, from her mother, whose name was Safari, and she lived to the ripe old age of 18, you say, which is extremely unusual. That's fantastic. And because of her success, which Karula seems to have inherited, she also inherited her title of Queen. Look at this hyena here, Vyum. He's looking like he might try and climb the tree. Obviously he won't, but... Beautiful. He's just smelling now where she's been lying. I'm not going to move just yet I'm not sure how comfortable she is, and if I move to see her face, we're going to have to go all the way around the other side of the tree. So I'm just going to let this play out briefly, and then we'll see. She's back up again. Now her face is down. So we had that question about whether she'd be very happy and comfortable to just sleep on the ground there. And you can see how as soon as she heard the hyena coming, she picked it up before we did from a sleeping position, and then she shot up there in the most elegant fashion. You'll never see a lion climbing a tree like that. A lovely question. How far along in her pregnancy would I have to... no, I can't... No. Let me start that again, Gerda, before I make a mess. How far along in her pregnancy would she have to be before I could see that she was pregnant? Gerda, they have a very short gestation period of only about 100 days, which is not a long time. It's just over 3 months. And so you wouldn't see she was pregnant probably until about 3 weeks before she gave birth. Somebody, if you had a leopard in captivity and you were able to watch her very carefully every day, you'd probably pick it up a lot sooner. But in the wild like this, with them eating like they do, and being full and then not full, I think probably, between 2 and 2.5 months, you'll be able to obviously pick up whether she's pregnant or not. So if she was mating in May, which we've heard, I'd say middle of next month, if she is pregnant, we'll be able to see. That would be just so exciting. Shall I try and go backwards, or do you want to try and go around the other side?
We can go for a little stroll.
Should we try? Okay, we're going to try and go around the other side where we were this morning. Thankfully, most of the bush has been flattened already by us, these encroacher species, so please don't worry about the trees, and we'll see if we can't get a better view from the other side. We'll stop right here. She's turned her face to us. So I think we'll just stop here and we'll look at her face. Hello, Ramay. Really nice question again. Have I ever seen a larger female leopard than this? Ramay, I've probably seen one larger female leopard than this. When I very first started guiding, it was a place called Ngala. It still is called Ngala. It's a magnificent 15,000 hectare concession about 30 kilometers north of here, also part of the Greater Kruger National Park. And there's a beautiful river that runs through it called the Timbavati. So it's kind of iconic, dry African river. And there were 3 leopards that lived along the banks of that river, one called the Oppie female, the one called the Clara female, and the one sandwiched in the middle called the S-bend female. Now, the S-bend female looked like a male. She was substantially larger than this one. Karula's a good-sized female. She's pretty much the same size as, pretty average-sized, average to big, I would say, but the S-bend female was like a young male, like just the same sort of size as Nkuhuma and Quarantine are now. She was a real toughie, and she just had a magnificently strong vibe about her. And the other two on the river, the Clara, was about the same size as this, and the Oppie female was a tiny little leopard. So I mean, the size variation is incredible. They really do vary in size quite a lot. Unlike, for example, if you look at a herd of impala, the females all tend to be just about the same size. But these leopards do tend to vary quite a lot, and the males especially. I've said before that I don't think Mvula is the biggest male in the world. Beautiful as he is, and I always like it when slightly smaller animals do well, because I'm not a large man myself. But Mvula compared with Tingana is definitely bigger than Mvula, I think. And then that big Anderson male and the Campan male, which still lives around Londolozi, is probably a good 10 kilos heavier than them. But yeah, so the biggest one that I've seen, Rumay, the S-bend female, I'm sure she's unfortunately long passed on, but she was a magnificent old thing. And that was probably almost 15 years ago. You can hear that this leopard has attracted a remarkable amount of attention from various people around the place today. Hi, Charlie. Charlie, nice one. How much threat would a single hyena be to a leopard of Karula's age? She's not losing any strength at this age, Charlie. She's still a decent, she's still at full strength. So the size isn't so much the matter. But would she stand a chance against that hyena that we saw there? Looked like a male, an adult male, so smaller than the adult female. I'd say pound for pound, she's stronger. Pound for pound, she's definitely stronger. She's probably slightly lighter than that hyena, but she's much faster. But the crucial thing, Charlie, and this is a very important thing that you need to realize, is that a leopard will avoid conflict at any cost. Remember, a leopard lives on its own, totally unlike a hyena, which lives in a group. And so a hyena can afford to take a risk. And if it gets injured, it will be able to feed from the rest of its group. A bit like a lion, and certainly exactly like a wild dog. Whereas a leopard, I'm just going to wait for this noise to stop before I carry on. Whereas this leopard can't afford to get injured. As soon as a leopard gets injured, they're going to die, because they cannot feed themselves if they get injured, and no one's going to help them feed. So the crucial thing is, while a leopard might be pound for pound much more powerful than that hyena, she will avoid conflict at any cost. And at her age, she's still in pretty prime condition. She's going to be fine, size-wise. So because of that, you'll often see things like hyenas and wild dogs are far more ready to engage in a fight, or lions especially. I mean, lions will fight anything. They're far more willing to get into a fight than, say, a leopard or a cheetah, which will avoid conflict at any cost. I think it's Pinky Swear and Donna and a lot of the other Wild Earth chatter group. You want to know how she reacted to me when I got out to fetch these two sort of props that I've got here, the hair and the dung, or not the dung, the stomach contents. Guys, I did it extremely carefully. I parked so that the vehicle was between me and the pile of offal, and then I gingerly opened the door, and I leant out and picked up the hair, and then I had a choice of trying to reach out and fetch the stomach contents in the same way, but I felt I might fall out of the car into it, which I really didn't want to do, and so I just gingerly put one foot out, leant forward, gingerly leant over with the tissue, picked up a little piece, and I said to Viam, just watch her, just watch her. And she lifted her head slightly, looked at me, wouldn't try it. In fact, even with shadow, I wouldn't try it. She tends to be just a little bit more easily threatened. Very nice question, though. And the males as well, the males tend to be less, they're much more likely to get up and move away if you do something like that. But these females, like this one, and the female I was talking about earlier, for example, that's called the Clara female, where I used to work, she was remarkable. She would almost not react on foot at all, and you could do the same sort of thing with her. They're brilliant filming animals, these, because once they're habituated, you can get in right close. You can move and do different angles, and they don't tend to move around at all. They're very happy for you to do that. My favorite kind of a leopard to find on foot is a young male, because the young males, before they become territorial, are very inquisitive, but nervous at the same time. And so if you find them on foot, they'll often engage with you. So they'll look at you and they'll come and have a bit of a closer look. And I mean, a friend of mine once had an experience with his guests. He was sitting on top of a rocky outcrop, and this leopard arrived, and he knew who the leopard was, and it walked slowly up to them and came within sort of 3 meters. Young male leopard, totally unthreatened, not growling, just inquisitive, looking like this, and they were at eye level, like I'm looking at you now. There was a leopard staring at them. What an experience. So a young male leopard like that is the best, and that's why we spend so much time trying to find leopards, because they're just such fun to be around. That you can have experiences like that. With a lion, not so much. We're just going to here is the offal. Not very delicious. And that is basically chewed up leaf from a drainage line close by. They will be eating some of these strychnos leaves. They don't have any strychnos in them at the moment, but that's what that is. And I'm just going to give it a smell. Yeah, no, that's like a it's a bit like extremely powerful horse dung. Particularly disgusting horse dung, and I'm not surprised that hyena could smell it from a mile off. Really nice question from Kevin. I think I'm going to toss that out. Kevin, you want to know, we'll just go back and have a quick look at our beautiful leopard, and I might just put a spotlight on it. Viam, are you happy with the light as it is?
Well, not bad.
Okay. So, Kevin, you want to know why leopards will so usually fight each other at times when they don't like conflict. Kevin, leopards do not often fight each other. They will avoid it at all costs. I've watched 2 male leopards, very territorial, sitting within 10 meters of each other on a territorial boundary, growling, hissing, marking, kicking dust at each other, making a huge noise, where 2 lions in that situation would have absolutely butchered each other. 2 leopards, unless it's an absolutely last resort, they will avoid conflict. She, for example, the other day, when she had her food taken from her by the unchivalrous Mvula, she made no attempt to defend herself at all. She leapt over and down the tree and disappeared. So, Kevin, while when they do meet each other, it might seem like they fight a lot, the actual physical contact that they have is minimal. It does happen, absolutely, but it's not common. Right, we're just going to go across back to Scott while this beautiful royal cat of Djuma has her sleep time. We're going to go back to Scott and see what the lions are doing at the moment, and we'll see you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone. And earlier on Drive, we saw 2 African hawk eagles. And I did mention that the Nkuhuma pride were last seen quite close to their nest. I didn't realize that they were literally underneath it. So this is the home of the African hawk eagles we saw a little bit earlier on. And as Brian zooms out, you'll realize that they are just meters away. Sadly, nothing has changed with their behavior, and they are all still fast asleep. So hopefully that will change in the next few minutes, but at the moment you can see they are all very lifeless. Really interesting, and really happy that you all got to see their changes in behavior and how hard it is to predict what any of these wild animals will do, because if you were tuned in earlier on Drive, they were slowly showing signs of getting mobile, and then did appear to really be in full motion, and only to discover that they went to sleep not long after we thought we had lost them. We've just got a question through from Mary, and she would like to know if lions prefer any meat or any specific prey over another, or if they have any particular tastes. And not that I've seen, Mary, unlike James, who will not eat the remains or insides of leftover bushbuck, he will only sniff at them, which must have been a real treat to see. I'm very sad I missed that whole experience that James has just shared with you. Lions will eat just about anything meaty. They've got no specific preferences in terms of prey. One animal that is believed to taste bad, and it's a bit of a misconception, is actually the waterbuck. And it is true that they've got a very pungent odor, and they probably don't taste very good to us as humans, but to lions they have no problem with eating them, or any other antelope. I've even seen one of the members of this pride eat a tortoise before, and I'm not sure whether it was out of desperation or out of despair after being chased around by a few bachelor buffaloes after we saw them getting taught a lesson by the buffalo at Vuyatela Dam a couple of months ago. And I'm sure a tortoise isn't a very appetizing meal. James was chatting earlier about habituation, and you would have heard now a vehicle has just started up its engine and is now starting to drive. And look at the lion's reaction. They are completely oblivious to us, and that's so important for us, and it's so reassuring for when we do spend time with them and view them, that we don't interfere or impact in any way. And this is testament to what good guiding protocol will result in, and this is something that we cannot claim is from our doing, but many years of good guiding practice within the Sabi Sands has resulted in these wonderful scenarios where we can sit and watch these wild animals from just meters away as if we are not even here. They are completely oblivious to us, and that's exactly how we want it to be. We don't want to impact or interfere with nature in any way, but we do obviously want to show you the animals, and to show you them we have to sometimes get up close to them, drive through thick bush after them, but they don't mind that, and this is a good example. There's another vehicle on the way. So the Nkuhuma pride are attracting a lot of visitors this afternoon. The reserve has become quite busy over this weekend, and what that means is that we may have a lot more vehicles coming in and out of sightings, and possibly have pressure to leave sightings to make space for other vehicles. But what it also means is that there's more eyes and ears on the ground searching for animals. So I think it's good to have lots of vehicles driving around. And here come a few more. It's often quite handy for us when there is another vehicle here, because the effect the other spotlight has, with a spotlight shining from another vehicle, can be quite useful for us, and especially as it begins to get darker, we will really appreciate having other vehicles here to help with side lighting the animals. Okay, well, Tony's just asked a great question, and he's interested to know how big is the African hawk eagle's nest just up behind us. And I would say it's probably about a square meter, so fairly large, and the bird itself is probably about 45 to 50 centimeters in length, so about half a meter long. So quite a big nest. It's quite haphazardly put together. It wasn't easy for you to see. I'm not sure, although I was shining the spotlights on, but quite a haphazardly built nest of lots of sticks intertwined and just balancing on one another. It'll be interesting to see how they started building that nest from the get-go, which branches they would have used as the main foundations, but they've managed to work it out, and hopefully in the next few months we'll get to see a few chicks being raised out of that nest, because now that we know where it is, we can try and keep a close tab on it. So that's something that's really exciting. Speaking of excitement up trees, I'm really happy to hear that you got a great view of Karula scrambling up the tree after seeing a hyena arrive, especially after we have been discussing the likelihoods or what would happen when predators of various species do come across one another. Well, now you clearly know what a leopard does when a hyena arrives, or at least a female, and I guess it may change from individual to individual, so that's also something that you have to think about whenever you see something in nature or hear a story about a certain animal in nature. A different animal may react differently on a different occasion. The roles would definitely be reversed, though. If a hyena was to come into this scenario now, it would not be the cat running away, it would be the hyena that runs away. Hyena in this area have got a lot of respect for lions, and it's actually very seldom that the hyena of this area will ever attack or pursue lions and try and chase them off kills, whereas as a whole in Africa that's not always the case. You get certain hyenas in various areas of Africa, the same type of hyena, a spotted hyena, that will come in and try its best to chase, or together with the rest of its clan, to chase prides of lion off their kills, and they can often do that successfully, but it does depend on the area. In the same breath, I've said it before, but it's an important fact that I will share again, in certain scenarios it will be the lions that actually steal food from the hyenas. So there are interesting roles reversed depending on where you are in Africa, and that's important to remember. Here though, the hyena tend to prefer to steal from the leopard, like Karula, because it's an easier source of food than the lion. Well, we're going to hang around with these sleepy lions. Hopefully they're going to wake up before the end of the broadcast, but in the meantime, I'm sure you're all wanting to know what Karula's up to, so over to James and Karula.
Atmospheric. Hello everyone, welcome back to Giga. We remain alone here with the leopard, and Liam has just set up a beautiful wide shot of basically what he and I can see You might be able to see the leopard in the middle of the shot there, but just before we zoom in there, I just want you to have a listen to what's going on, and I'll describe what I can hear after about 20 seconds. So just have a listen and marvel at that incredible color. Subtle, beautiful color. So I can hear off behind the leopard, I can see I can hear a white-browed scrub robin going. There's a chin spot batis. Me with a little. There are francolins, just calling their last calls before they go into their roosts. And there's a huge group of babblers way off behind us. You would have just heard it. Just babbling away. I'm not going to try and ruin the atmosphere by trying to impersonate them. But otherwise, all is still. There are also some starlings calling, some Birchall starlings. Isn't that wonderful? I can think of no better way. And look at that planet peeping out. That's Venus peeping out from behind the clouds there. Think of no better way to spend a Saturday evening than right where I am now. So you can see it's got a bit chillier. I've put my woolly hat on my head because I don't have any covering. It doesn't have any covering of its own anymore. But it's certainly not cold yet. It's quite pleasant. We'll just zoom into the leopard now and see what we can see. Hello, Suzanne in the Netherlands. You want to know, did Karula smell that hyena before she saw it? Or did she hear it? I think she heard it, Suzanne. Remember that I'm just going to turn some lights on here. She's rather well hidden. We'll just sit like this for a little while. If we go off to the left there, you can see a lovely shot of her foot sort of hanging down there. Suzanne, I stuck my nose into a hyena den the other day, and a few of you saw me do that, because we get a lot of questions about whether or not these predators can smell each other, whether their prey can smell them. I think they hide their smells hugely well, and unless they've been eating something and bear the stink of offal or innards on them, I don't think they smell very much at all. So no, I don't think she smelt that hyena. She might have. I couldn't say for sure, but I think she heard it, because as soon as I heard it, her head was up, and I obviously couldn't smell it at all. And so I think it's far more to do with hearing and sight when worrying about other predators, and they probably use their smell a bit more when they're trying to pick up on prey. Ramey, lovely question here, and I'm not sure I know the answer, but I'm going to give it a guess. You want to know, do leopards ever go deaf? Given how incredibly important their hearing is to them, you'd like to know, do they ever actually go deaf? Ramey, I don't know for sure. I would think it's probably possible. if they get an injury in the head, if they get kicked in the head, perhaps chasing a zebra, or, well, it's unlikely, but if they're chasing a kudu, perhaps they could get kicked in the head. They might go deaf, they may lose their hearing. I imagine, though, because I've seen leopards with one eye, and we've seen Mvula who may or may not be able to see out of that one eye, but we know of a few leopards that have survived perfectly well with one eye. So, could they survive without their hearing? I think it would severely compromise them if they lost all of their hearing, but if their hearing was just slightly reduced, or if they lost it in one ear, I think they'd survive fine. I think they don't overcompensate, they compensate with the other senses. Probably use smell more, probably use their teeth, they'll probably use their eyes more, and they'd probably also spend a greater amount of time in trees. So if they were going to sleep, they'd go up into trees or into thicker bush where they were pretty sure they wouldn't be found. So I think that's probably what they would do. I think, yeah, we're just going to try and reposition the vehicle slightly. There's actually some wonderful colors there. The sort of whitish light of my vehicle, the golden light of that spotlight, and the beautiful sky behind. There's wonderful colors. We're just going to try and move slightly and see if we can't get a better view of her, perhaps ahead. Sort of where we were before, Viam. Okay. Viam, as you can see, is a man of huge words. He speaks almost incessantly. I can hardly hear myself think. Okay, so a few of you would like to see the W on her forehead because it's been mentioned so much. We'll definitely try and have a look now. Just try not to blind these other people on the drive. Watch your head here, Viam. So we'll try and get a look at that W. We're not sure we'll be able to get it, but we'll try. I must just tell you, everybody, in light conditions like this, I spent 2 days on camera before I was fired from doing it because I was so incompetent. To be able to get focus in light conditions like this is extremely difficult. And Viam is highly skilled at his job. Yeah, you can very clearly see that W there. Thanks, everybody, for pointing that out. You can also see, just above her whiskers there, you can see her spot pattern, which is unique to all leopards. And this one, on this side, which is her right-hand side, looks like 2. I thought she was a 3. It might be that the other one is hidden below the shadow. All right, we're just going to go across to Scott. He's going to bid the Nkuhuma pride a fond farewell, and then we'll see you just now with this glorious leopard and the colors all around, which are just utterly inspiring. There's a moon above, and we'll see you just now.
Welcome back, everyone, and it's good to have you with us. As you can see, the Nkuhuma pride have not moved a muscle. They are still comatose in the grass from too much food and too much relaxing. So we're going to make space for Ephraim to come in and enjoy this sighting, and we're going to go and see what else we can find. Hopefully a bush baby or some other nocturnal animals, but we just thought we'd call you across to have one last quick look at them, and hopefully we'll find them again in the morning. But we're going to carry on now and see what else is out there. Oh, what a day it's been, filled with big cats, and it's not always like this, so we do just have to make the most of the good opportunities when they arise. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, whoops, sorry about that, the buffalo thorn tree. We should be back on the road shortly, and then we're going to make our way slowly back towards camp. And like I say, see what other nocturnal animals we can find. Bush babies are one that we've been getting lucky with over the last few months, but who knows, possibly an owl, civets, white-tailed mongoose, another leopard. Anything's possible. All of my cables have got tangled, and just take a second or two to remedy this problem. Well, at least I thought I'd take a second or two. These cables have made very good friends without my knowledge, and it's making it impossible for me to shine the spotlights. But thanks to Brian for showing you the clouds while I was clumsily trying to untangle those cords as quickly as I could. Look at that for a beautiful view. There's two bright stars that you can see up there of Venus and Jupiter. They're very close together at this time of the year. And what a magical evening it's been. And it's great to just take a moment and stop and reflect sometimes, rather than being on a never-ending quest to find animals all the time. You can often overlook beautiful scenery, and this night sky is certainly something worth taking a moment to enjoy. Still a faint orange glow to the west from where the sun sets. Very good, thank you, Brian. So I'm going to be shining the spotlight, and what I'm going to be looking for are the reflections on the eyes of the animals. And once we've determined what kind of animal it is, depending on whether it's diurnal or nocturnal, well, here's one. How close can we get to it? I don't want to go too close, but that should do. Close enough to allow Brian to get you nice and close. Look at that. It's a very pretty nocturnal bird called the nightjar, and it's highly adapted to feed at night, and you'll see it's got that massive eye, which will help let in as much light as possible. And it looks like it's got a very small beak, which it does, but it can open into a very wide gape. And I don't think it's possible to see from here. We're a little bit far away. But they've also got thin whisker-like bristles that grow into almost a funnel shape around the beak to help funnel insects into the mouth as they fly around with a very widely opened mouth. I'm not sure which type this is. They're very difficult to distinguish different species when just looking at them like this. You actually have to open up their wings and look under their primary feathers and their tail feathers to be able to differentiate a lot of the nightjars. But it could be one called a fiery-necked nightjar, which is a beautiful call that rings out. They're not very vocal at the moment, but they're quite prominent in this area of the Sabi Sands. Great. Well, there is our first nocturnal animal on the way home, and it didn't take us very long, so let's hope. Don't worry, I'm not going to run it over, it's just flown off. just got a question through from Anne, and she's interested to know what will happen when Junior moves off from the Pride, when he's chased away. What name will he be given? Will he be called after his fathers, the Matimbas, or after his Pride, the Nkuhumas? He will probably be called the Nkuhuma young male, I'm guessing, because that is the Pride that he originates from, up until a point where he may establish his own territory or form part of another coalition with with other male lions. He could then well be renamed in whatever area he is in, and that would be up to the guides of that area. So difficult to tell, but I think for now he more likely would be called the Incas. Start moving on his own. And well, I think that's about all from Brian and myself this afternoon. It's been wonderful having you on board with us, and I hope you've enjoyed the safari as much as we have. It's been one of those afternoons or days really that you dream for, and we've got it in the bank. I hope you've all taken lots of screenshots, and to all of you that did send questions through that weren't answered, I thank you hugely for doing that, and apologize about not answering them. It is important to realize that there are many people watching the show, so we can't answer everyone's questions. Anyway, we're going to take you back for the last few minutes, but before I do so, a big thanks to Brian on camera, and also to Tara, who was in the director's chair, and Nikki, who was lending her a hand. We will see you all for the sunrise safari tomorrow. Bye from me. Have a good one with Karula.
Hi everybody, welcome back to this magnificent sighting. We have had 3 hours with this spectacular leopard, and I feel truly privileged and just really humbled by the amount of time we've had to spend with her and how confiding she's been. And you can just see her totally relaxed now as the atmosphere this night sort of closes in. It's a quiet, cloudy, there's a little bit of a moon flashing in between the clouds, no stars, and it's a perfect night for a leopard. It's going to be wonderfully peaceful for her, I think. So, I must just Gerda and Laura, you want to know if the hyena is still around. The hyena is not around. I think they've gone off, decided that there's nothing in the offing here, and they've headed off into the night to see what they can find. You also want to know, apparently a hyena killed one of her cubs before. I don't know about that. And you want to know, did the hyena eat the cub? The likelihood is that absolutely it would have eaten the cub. It's been a fantastic afternoon. I thank you very much for your time, for your questions. I'm continually astonished at the amount of knowledge you all have and the amount that I learn during these drives. And so thank you for them, and thank you for your comments and everything else. Thank you to Viam on camera. You know, he's very verbose. We have to keep him down at times, but you know, he's a wonderful cameraman. Thank you very much to Scott and Brian, and of course in the control box, the inimitable Tara Dales in the hot seat, and the slightly less warm one, Nikki Austin, and I'm sure Andrew was knocking about there in his bandit scarf doing some camera checks. So thanks to all of you, and please join us tomorrow morning. It's been, I hope we'll have a day like we had today, but I'm not sure. The night will be grey, probably a little breezy, and it'll just have that wonderful kind of cold front African winter feel about it. So for the last few seconds, we're going to take you back across to Karula and and just enjoy the last of her and listen to the magnificence of this night and the incredible quiet. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.